Here's a strange thought. At no point in human history have we had this much comfort, and yet so many of us feel like we're drowning. We have washing machines, AI assistants, food delivery, therapy podcasts, digital planners, and 5 different kinds of oat milk. And somehow, brushing your teeth still feels like a task. Why is that? Why is it that even with more options, more information, and more opportunities than ever before, life feels heavier, not lighter? Maybe we've confused ease with freedom, and we've made freedom feel like pressure. Because the real question isn't just, why is life hard? It's, why do we keep making life more complicated than it has to be? This isn't a story about being lazy or broken or not trying hard enough. This is a story about a mind built to survive in the wild, now trying to thrive in a world of too many choices, expectations, and pressure. Let's unpack it. Section 1. The problem isn't you. It's your brain. First, you have to understand this. Your brain was not designed to make you happy. It was designed to keep you alive. That means it's constantly scanning for problems, real or imagined. Back in the day, those problems were simple. Don't get eaten. Don't starve. Don't get banished from the tribe. Fast forward to now, and those same survival mechanisms are scanning your inbox instead of the jungle. Now, the tiger is your unread emails. The banishment is social rejection, and starvation is not going viral. So what does the brain do? It complicates everything, because to the brain, complexity feels like control. Can't decide what to wear. Maybe it's not about fashion. It's about approval. Can't choose a career path. Maybe it's not confusion. It's fear of failure disguised as options. Can't rest without guilt. That's your survival instinct mistaking stillness for danger. Overthinking is your brain's attempt to protect you. It's saying, let's prepare for every outcome, solve every scenario, and prevent every disaster before it happens. The problem? That kind of thinking doesn't protect you. It paralyzes you. It's like trying to drive with the emergency brake on. You go nowhere fast. Here's the kicker. We don't just overthink bad things. We overthink good things too. Because peace feels unfamiliar. And what's unfamiliar feels unsafe. So the moment things get quiet, the brain gets louder. Shouldn't you be doing something? Is this really enough? Are you sure this is the right path? Your brain doesn't mean to sabotage you. It's just trying to help. But in the process, it often mistakes complexity for safety, when what you really need is clarity. Section 2. We're addicted to more. We live in a time when almost anything we want is a click away. A new phone, same-day delivery. A date, swipe right. A new skill, YouTube's got you. And yet, we're still restless. That's because we've confused more with better. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. The idea that no matter how much you get, your brain quickly resets to a new baseline. You get the promotion, the car, the relationship, and within weeks or months, you're already asking, what's next? Here's why that's dangerous. When enough doesn't exist, life becomes a never-ending scavenger hunt. And the moment you find the thing you thought would change everything, you immediately start chasing something else. It's like drinking salt water. The more you consume, the thirstier you get. But here's the twist. This addiction to more isn't just about stuff, it's about identity. We collect achievements like souvenirs, thinking they'll finally make us feel complete. We complicate our lives with endless goals, endless upgrades, endless improvements, not realizing that the constant pursuit is what's exhausting us. And the worst part? The moment we stop chasing, we're left with the silence. And in that silence, we're forced to face ourselves, which for many people is scarier than any failure. So instead, we fill our calendars. We overcommit. We overconsume. We tell ourselves, once I have this, then I'll feel at peace. But peace isn't a finish line. It's a choice. And as long as we keep chasing more, we'll keep making life more complicated than it needs to be. Section 3. Cultural conditioning and social proof. Now, let's talk about the water we're swimming in. Culture. We grow up with the idea that busyness is a badge of honor. The more packed your schedule, the more important you must be. Think about it. If someone asks, "How have you been?" and you answer, "Relaxed, not much going on," they'll probably look at you like something's wrong. But if you say, "Oh, crazy busy, running around, so much going on," you get a nod of approval. We've been conditioned to equate chaos with value, and social proof amplifies this. Social proof is the psychological principle that says we decide what's good or valuable by seeing what everyone else is doing. If other people are rushing, we rush too. If other people are overcommitted, we assume that's just what life is. Social media has taken this to absurd levels. Now we're not just comparing ourselves to neighbors or coworkers. We're comparing ourselves to curated highlight reels of people all over the world. The result? We overcomplicate our lives trying to keep up with a lifestyle that might not even be real. It's not enough to have a nice living room. It has to be Pinterest-worthy. It's not enough to go on vacation. You have to document it, edit it, and make sure it performs well online. Every choice becomes a performance, and every performance requires more energy, more planning, more mental clutter. Before you know it, your life isn't yours anymore. It's a series of carefully managed impressions. We think we're living, but really, we're curating. And the tragedy is that in trying so hard to look like we have a great life, we forget to actually have one. Section 4. Emotional avoidance and busyness. Here's a hard truth. Many of us stay busy, not because we love what we're doing, but because we're terrified of what happens when we stop. Silence can be brutal. Stillness can feel like a trap, because when everything slows down, the feelings we've buried start to bubble up. Old grief, unanswered questions, that weird hollow ache in your chest that has no name. So what do? We weaponize busyness. We turn every moment into a task, every pause into a project, because if we keep moving, we don't have to feel. And if we don't feel, we don't have to heal. But here's the trap. Avoiding emotions doesn't erase them. It just delays them. And the longer you delay, the more complicated things get. Suddenly, you're not just working late because of a deadline. You're working late because sitting in a quiet room alone makes your skin crawl. You're not just overcommitted because you're helpful. You're overcommitted because saying no feels like abandonment. Busyness becomes a shield, a socially acceptable way to stay numb. And what do shields do? They protect, but they also disconnect from others, from ourselves, from the present moment. So we build these complicated lives, filled with errands, deadlines, content, goals, to avoid the simplest, most uncomfortable thing in the world, being with ourselves. Section 5. Perfectionism and the myth of right. Another reason we complicate life. We're terrified of making the wrong choice. We don't want to just pick a job. We want to pick the perfect job. Not just a relationship, but the perfect person. Not just a hobby, but one that's productive, aesthetic, and potentially monetizable. We live in a world that worships optimization, which sounds smart until you realize how heavy it makes everything. When every decision feels like it has infinite options and permanent consequences, you freeze, you scroll, you research, you spiral. This is analysis paralysis, the art of making no decision because every decision feels like a trap. And perfectionism doesn't just slow you down, it adds layers of emotional complexity to every step. Is this the right time? What if I regret it? What if I fail and everyone sees? We think we're being responsible. We think we're being smart. But often we're just being scared and calling it strategy. Here's the irony. There is no perfect path, only the one you choose and make meaningful. But the longer you wait for perfect, the more tangled everything becomes, and the simpler life feels, the more suspicious you get. Section 6. The productivity spiral. Let's talk about the hustle. Somewhere along the way, productivity stopped being a tool and became an identity. You're no longer just a person. You're a brand, a project, a system to optimize. You wake up thinking about output. You go to sleep calculating time blocks. Even rest becomes a form of productive recovery. We enter what's called the productivity spiral, where every act of rest has to be justified, monetized, or tracked. Read a book? Bonus if it's self-help. Go for a walk? Turn it into a podcast catch-up. Meditate? Great. But make sure it improves your focus at work. Rest for rest's sake becomes unacceptable. Because if you're not constantly improving, what are you even doing? We've blurred the line between being alive and being useful, and it's not our fault. We've been raised on slogans like rise and grind, sleep when you're dead, and don't waste your potential. But here's the problem. You are not a machine. You are not a spreadsheet. And when you treat yourself like one, you don't just burn out. You forget what it feels like to be a human being. You stop playing. You stop wandering. You stop wondering. You become a checklist with legs. And life, this wild, messy, beautiful experience, gets reduced to data points and deadlines. The spiral begins when we believe we have to earn our worth. It ends when we remember you were enough before you ever did a single thing. Section 7. External noise. Who are you performing for? Here's a question that might sting a little. Who are you performing for? Because a big reason life feels complicated is that most of us are trying to meet 100 different expectations that aren't even ours. You grew up with family expectations, then school expectations, then workplace expectations. Then society said you have to be ambitious but humble, attractive but effortless, successful but not arrogant, vulnerable but not messy. It's a trap, and if you're not careful, you'll spend your entire life trying to become a mosaic of what other people want. And mosaics are beautiful, but they crack under pressure. The truth is, the more voices you internalize, the more lost you become. Suddenly, you don't know what you want. You don't know what's yours and what's borrowed. That's why something as simple as choosing a weekend plan can feel overwhelming. You're not just asking, what do I want to do? You're subconsciously calculating, what would make me seem productive? What would disappoint my partner? What would get likes online? That's not a decision. That's a negotiation, and it's exhausting. Simplicity requires clarity, and clarity requires courage. The courage to disappoint people, to be misunderstood, to say, I know this doesn't make sense to you, but it feels right to me. Otherwise, you're not living your life. You're renting it out to other people. Section 8. Overthinking and the meaning trap. Let's talk about one of the sneakiest sources of life complexity, the obsession with meaning. Now, don't get it twisted. Meaning matters. Humans are meaning-making machines. We need it. But sometimes we take it too far. We try to squeeze deep significance out of everything. A missed call means someone's mad. A bad day means you're on the wrong path. A relationship ending means you're broken. We go full detective mode on every experience, trying to figure out what the universe is telling us. And suddenly, you're not just living, you're decoding, analyzing, searching for a grand cosmic message behind every awkward text and traffic jam. That's not depth. That's anxiety wearing a philosophical hat. Sometimes a bad day is just a bad day. Sometimes people don't call back because they're tired, not because you're unlovable. The pressure to make everything meaningful can turn life into a puzzle that never gets solved. And if you're always searching for a lesson, you forget how to live the moment. Simplicity means letting go of the pressure to turn every leaf into a metaphor. You can just enjoy the breeze. Not everything has to be a story. Some things can just be. Section 9. What simplicity actually looks like. So what does simplicity actually look like? It's not about throwing away your belongings and moving to a cabin in the woods. It's about clarity. Clarity of values, clarity of needs, clarity of voice. Simplicity means doing fewer things, but doing them well. It means knowing what matters to you, so you don't waste your life chasing what doesn't. It looks like saying no without guilt, resting without needing to earn it, letting go of relationships, projects, and versions of yourself that no longer fit. It's not always easy. In fact, it can be brutally uncomfortable, because simplicity often feels like loss before it feels like freedom. But here's the truth. You can't create a peaceful life on top of chaotic foundations. You have to choose. And that choice often sounds like, I'm not doing this anymore. Not because you don't care, but because you finally do. Section 10. How to begin uncomplicating your life. All right, you've made it this far. You're probably wondering, okay, I get it. But how do I actually begin to simplify things? It starts small, not with a complete life overhaul, not with deleting all your apps and meditating in a forest, but with these simple shifts. 1. Ask, is this necessary or just familiar? So much of what we do every day isn't essential. It's just habitual. We check our phones first thing in the morning, not because it helps, but because it's what we've always done. Simplicity starts when you challenge autopilot. 2. Audit your inputs. Your brain is a sponge, and most of us are soaking in junk. Too much noise equals too many decisions equals mental fatigue. Try this. Cut your digital input by 20% this week. 1 less news scroll, 1 fewer creator, 1 notification turned off. You'll be shocked how much calmer you feel. 3. Define your enough. Most people don't have a target for what enough looks like. Enough money, enough work, enough socializing, so they never feel satisfied because the goalposts keep moving. Write it down. Name your enough so you can stop chasing infinity. 4th, stop optimizing everything. Not every activity needs to be productive. Let dinner be just dinner. Let a walk be a walk. Let rest be rest. Joy doesn't always come from upgrades. Sometimes it comes from leaving things exactly as they are. 5. Make peace with the idea of being misunderstood. Here's the cost of simplicity. Not everyone will get it. They'll say you're lazy or selfish or weird. Let them. The peace you find will be worth the discomfort. Simplicity is not about doing less for the sake of it. It's about doing what matters and having the courage to leave the rest. So, why do we make life so complicated? Because our brains crave control, because our culture rewards chaos, because stillness feels dangerous, because we think our worth is something we have to earn. But what if it's not? What if life isn't meant to be maximized, but felt? What if you don't need a 5-year plan to deserve rest? What if peace isn't a reward, but your starting point? Here's the truth. You were not made to be overwhelmed. You were not made to live inside spreadsheets and strategies. You were made to breathe, to create, to connect, and to exist without justifying it. So, the next time life feels heavy, ask yourself, is this complicated or just cluttered? And what would happen if I chose to make it simple? Thanks for watching. If this video helped you untangle a few things, consider sharing it with someone who needs it too. Hit like and subscribe for more deep, grounded self-awareness, minus the fluff. Until next time, let it be simple. Let it be enough. Let yourself be.